All right, so for this week's video, we're gonna do something a little bit different. I don't think that I've ever done a practice session on here. I've talked about it several times where I wanna dedicate at least a day or two of my stream schedule to practicing. I think it's really important. Not only just practice by drawing, but practice by actually taking the time out to figure out and isolate areas of weakness for you specifically and really just tackle those. And so I finally did it last week with portraits. Faces are something that I've wanted to improve on. I've wanted to really solidify the volume, the planes of the face, and just shapes in general. And so I've gone back to strengthen my fundamentals. And so I try to break everything down into shapes and basically just relearn, like if I didn't know how to draw already. For today, I went ahead and just took some K-pop celebrities to practice with, and the first person that I picked was Mark. So normally when I draw anyone, I don't like to just draw my style of an existing picture and pose of them. Normally what I like to do is I'll study their face and their features, their expressions, and I basically just memorize it all, and then I draw them from scratch how I would want to after I've already memorized all their features and their expressions. And so what happens with that is that if my knowledge of shapes and planes of the face isn't strong enough, I won't be able to observe certain things and execute them properly. I am ashamed to say that I don't practice by copying a picture and pose as often as I should in order to strengthen my general knowledge of anatomy. A lot of it too is my indecision of where I want the art style to be and what exactly I want to do. I'm completely flailing in the water here, and so I try to do this very loose copy of the picture, and then from the information that I've gathered from that picture, so I'm not just copying the picture, I'm trying to like copy the picture and learn from what I'm copying. So I'll see that he has a very like thin face, his jaw is very cut and long, and I try to create another picture of him from the information that I've gathered. That second one was just from my head. I didn't really look up a pose for that. And then I try to do the same for a profile view, which is a little bit harder because I don't really have any reference. And so after I realize that it's gonna be too difficult, I end up looking up a profile picture of him just to see. And so I go on and I move to the next one, which is Win-Win, another member of NCT, also in Wavy. And I try to pick 3/4 angles because I think they're the easiest to gather information from. So you get to see like the size of the nose better, you get to see their jawline, their cheekbones, and you get to see just a lot of the dynamics of a face. This one I knew I was gonna have trouble with. One, because I struggle a lot with really round faces, round things in general. So you'll notice that a lot of the jaw lines, so for example with Mark, he has a very angular jaw, and so that one I didn't struggle too much with. But a lot of my characters, if you notice, they have very angular jaws because it's what I'm most comfortable drawing. But as soon as the jaw lines get a little bit softer and like the features get rounder, I tend to have a hard time making them look like they're there. So I already know I was gonna have trouble with this. I also struggle with slightly forward, downward leaning face angles. I knew this was gonna be a struggle. And then I end up drawing a silhouette of the hand in like 2 seconds. So I'm like, oh, this is annoying. Here I start laughing because I realize that it looks like Jackson from GOT7 and Mark from GOT7 put together, and I cannot get it to look like Win-Win. We didn't do it for Mark, but you'll see that I do it here where I copy paste what I did and then I, under it, put the actual picture and I fix it. So I can see both the fixed version and the initial version that I did side by side. And even with the fixed version, I was not satisfied with that one. I don't feel like I fixed it really well, and it still didn't look like him. Some people in chat were suggesting that I do females, and so I decided to pick Seulgi, which I just love. I love her voice so much. She's just so beautiful, and so I decided to pick this picture. This one I ended up finding a lot easier than I initially thought, just because the jawline was pretty straightforward, and one of the reasons I picked this one is because you can kind of see the other side of her face just ever so slightly, and I typically have a lot of trouble doing that sort of thing. And here somebody asked me for a quick rundown of how to do a profile. I typically tend to struggle when you can kind of see the other side of the face. So you'll see now that when I copy paste this and I do the fix, my brain unintentionally changed the angle of her face so that I wouldn't have to do what I'm bad at, which is showing ever so slightly the angle. You see, like my brain went ahead and brought her face down. So it's not that the one that I did doesn't look like her, but you can very slightly see where the angles are going wrong. But in the fix, you can definitely see the other side of her face. This one was really interesting. I feel like as the portraits go on, I definitely get more comfortable, I get less nervous, and things just start to make sense. So Seulgi's from Red Velvet, Chaeyoung's from Twice, and I picked her because one, I really like her facial features, and two, her face tends to be pretty round, which, like I said, I'm really bad at this, and I picked this angle specifically because I'm also very bad at this angle. So I knew this one was going to be quite the challenge. I had a lot of fun with this one because the process really started to make more sense to me in terms of just getting used to the order of things, the placement, how I wanted to add line weight. And I think one of the hardest parts about doing this sort of thing, at least for me, is that when you're doing I don't know if this would be considered semi-realism. I would just call this like a cartoon version. But because the shading doesn't really exist here, I'm really just doing lines and very minor shading. You have to stylize certain things, even if they don't seem accurate, in order for it to look like the person, because there's no shadows. You know how when you just straight trace over a photo, it doesn't look right, even though you just traced over it? I feel like it's because you have to add other things in order to simulate the volume of the face. I think that's what I'm trying to say, right? You can't just trace a picture and then expect it to look, picture perfect. If you know who Oogie is from G-Idol, I didn't realize how much it looked like Oogie until I started fixing it. I guess my eyes just got super used to it, that once I really started fixing the proportions and the areas and the volumes of certain things, I was like, oh no, I thought I did really well on this one. I was really proud of that one until I fixed it and was like, oh no, it does not look like Chaeyoung at all. And so, yeah, you'll see me here just rearranging it so I can post it on social media. But this was a very fun stream. I was very nervous at first. Everyone made it feel very comfortable, very easy to do. So let me know if you guys enjoy this type of video, and if you did, then I might be doing more of these over on Twitch. So go ahead and check out my Twitch channel and the rest of my social media, which is at ArtByNips on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, everything. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Yay!